youth, I once shot a killer whale. When I towed the body down in front of the village, thinking I had done a great deed, the old men were much excited and scolded me angrily. They all came to the shore and prayed over the body, imploring the spirit of the killer whale not to be angry with them, for they had not done it. Only one, they reminded him, had done it, and they mentioned my name, so that there might be no misunderstanding.
It is written in the book of Genesis, "And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day." It is now nearing the 11th hour for great whales, being hunted in their farthest ocean ranges. Millions of years after the beginning of life in the sea, the common ancestor of the whale and man left the ocean to take residence on land. This was the beginning of all terrestrial mammals. Some of these prototype creatures began to live and to hunt in the shallow water along the edges of marshes and streams. These mammals no longer mixed with their terrestrial relatives. Then, 125 million years ago, they returned to the sea to become the whales. The Odontocetes, those whales which retained the use of teeth, developed first from primitive whale stocks. "27 million years before the appearance of man, the sperm whale, the dolphin, and the killer whale existed in essentially modern form. The killer whale became the supreme predator of the sea. He is the one creature on Earth who's had no reason to know fear, preying even on the sperm whale. Reaching speeds up to 35 miles per hour, the killer whale is the fastest marine mammal which takes warm-blooded prey. Accounts have described the killing of minke whales, sei and baird and gray whales, all animals much larger than the killer whale which hunts them. Seals, which have hauled out of the water onto rocks, are successfully hunted by killer whales. One animal will approach noisily on the surface. This frightens the seals into the water on the other side of the rocks, where other whales are waiting. Killer whales and sailors have shared the oceans for centuries, yet there is not a single documented case of an unprovoked attack on man in the wild. Hunting the killer whale was not profitable, so little was known about the species. For centuries, sailors regarded the killer whale as vermin. It is only recently that scientists have begun to study killer whales in the wild. Since 1971, the Fisheries Research Board of Canada has been studying the killer whale population and their movements along the coast of British Columbia. This is where the world population of these animals is densest. Each summer, approximately 50 whales spend the months of June through September near the north end of Vancouver Island. This is perhaps the only population of whales on the planet that is predictable by its regular return to a particular place at a certain time each year. The killer whale's reputation of viciousness was modified when the animal was first introduced to captivity. In May 1964, a young male misnamed Moby Doll was harpooned and captured by an expedition from the Vancouver Public Aquarium. The peaceful behavior of Moby Doll towards his captors was the go-ahead for the use of whales in public aquariums around the world. In the way that man's knowledge of larger whales came through the commercial whaling industry, most information concerning the killer whale has originated with the commerce of the zoo. Killer whales have no natural enemies. The protective coloring which aids the survival of most marine creatures has been abandoned. The usual gradual gradation of light undersides to dark back has given way to the flamboyant black and white markings of the species. There is no difference in coloring between male and female, but the males grow to a much larger size. Male killer whales average 21 feet in length, but have been known to reach 31 feet and a weight of 9 tons. Each killer whale has 48 interlocking conical-shaped teeth. In the wild, they're used to seize the prey or to tear large pieces of flesh from the pursued animal. The tongue squeezes the food against the roof of the mouth to remove excess seawater. The killer whale is not a deep diving animal, but when a killer whale dives, it undergoes the same changes in body functioning as other diving mammals. To conserve oxygen during a dive, the heart rate slows and the blood flow to extremities is restricted. Dr. Merrill Spencer of the Institute of Environmental Medicine and Physiology in Seattle, Washington, is one of the scientists investigating these changes. It is estimated that the killer whale can remain submerged no longer than 15 minutes. This is a brief interval compared to the 1-hour diving time of other larger whales. There is a close connection between heart and respiration rates in killer whales, as in other marine animals. To measure the extent of this association, Dr. Spencer records heart rate at the Seattle Marine Aquarium. Electrodes are placed inside suction cups to hold them against the skin of the whale. The heart rate switches between 2 different speeds. Just before the killer whale comes to the surface and exhales, the heart rate increases to 60 beats per minute. About 15 seconds after taking a breath of air, and as the whale dives, his heart slows to half its former rate. The slower heart rate allows the whale to spend more time underwater. Here, at the Vancouver Public Aquarium, Dr. Spencer measures the lung capacity. This time, the animal voluntarily participates in the experiment. The whale rests near the training platform and allows a special apparatus to be placed over its blowhole. The apparatus contains 2 valves. One allows fresh air to be inhaled by the whale. The second channels exhaled air into a large plastic bag. By measuring the volume of air in the bag, its lung capacity is determined. Dr. Spencer discovered that a killer whale, unlike a human, does not breathe more deeply after strenuous activity. The whale simply breathes more often. It was believed that all whales have poor sight. Because 90% of the light falling on the ocean is absorbed within 30 feet, vision was thought to be of limited use to diving animals. But now we know that killer whales can see very well. Like the eyes of a cat, the killer whale's eye contains a special crystal layer. Because of this extra layer, light entering the eye hits the retina twice, a kind of double exposure to help increase night vision. Some other land animals have developed this system of light amplification for night vision too. but none to the extent of the killer whale. During a deep dive, or at night, vision is of less use. Under these conditions, the killer whale uses a sound system to see. Like the dolphin and other whales, killer whales echolocate. They produce echolocation clicks, then measure the time elapsed before the sound returns as an echo, and then listen to the nature and duration of the echo. From this, they produce an exact picture of their surroundings. Other sounds are used to keep contact with pod members and for exchanging information. They probably have a complex language system. The killer whale can move about with ease, using only sound to navigate. Here in a California sea aquarium, this animal's sonar system is tested. First, the whale is taught to retrieve a plastic hoop thrown to a corner of his pool. When he becomes used to retrieving the hoop, he is prepared for the experiment. Eye cups are put over his eyes to be sure he doesn't use vision. This whale doesn't seem to object to being temporarily without sight. When he was free in the ocean, total darkness was probably a common experience during his deep dives. When the eye cups are on, the hoop is once again thrown out into the pool. This time, he has to find it using echolocation only. Scientists are unsure as to how whales produce echolocation sounds. Echolocation originates at some internal site and is not accompanied by loss of air. The animals seem to possess some air recycling mechanism. Perhaps they have the ability to shunt air from one sinus to another in order to vocalize underwater without losing air. One site which is known to produce sound is the blowhole. The killer whale puts tension on the blowhole lid and forces air past it. Sounds produced by the blowhole are believed to be used for communicating with other whales. It is probable that the communication ability of the killer whale surpasses even that of the dolphin. Vocalizations of the killer whale, more so than any other non-human species, supply the strongest argument that complex animal communication exists. Scientists believe that the vocabulary of the killer whale is greater and more sophisticated than that of any other marine mammal, with the possible exception of the sperm whale. whales, using the temperature interfaces deep in the ocean and the submarine trenches which girdle the globe, likely are capable of communicating with others of their kind over hundreds, if not thousands of miles. Evidence suggests that a 50-mile communication distance is easily attained. The resting behavior of the killer whale is not fully understood. For an initial period of 5 or 10 minutes, the whales seem to remain stationary on the surface. Entire pods, or only parts of a pod, seem to take brief rest periods. If the animals are in offshore channels, resting seems to occur at times of minimum tidal flow. In sheltered bays or in open water, the whales may rest at any time, day or night. During the second period which follows, they alternate their time above and below the surface. A whale will sink below the surface, remain under a short while, then return to the surface to breathe. If only a part of the group is resting, the remaining animals stay nearby, perhaps keeping watch, perhaps only waiting. The killer whale has a complex relationship with its prey. Although killer whales are known to kill dolphins, minke whales, and gray whales, these species often exist side by side with pods of killer whales. Minke whales remain in the same area as killer whales for months, and yet remain untouched by the predators. Doll porpoises often swim near killer whales. Porpoises and dolphins will even travel within a pod of the larger animals. Gray whales traveling along the coast of British Columbia and the state of Washington most often pass untouched by killer whales in the area. These whales will come to the aid of their comrades from considerable distances. When Moby Doll, the first killer whale to survive in captivity, was harpooned, 2 whales risked capture, assisting the wounded animal to the surface, to breathe. Other species of whales have been studied far longer than has the killer whale. Pilot whales have already been trained to work underwater in military operations by the U.S. Navy. This pilot whale is trained to work with divers in the open ocean. He is held only by the bonds of his conditioning. He is rewarded from time to time with small fish. In this particular operation, illustrating whale intelligence, the whale is trained to recover lost equipment. He uses a grappling tool, which he holds in his mouth. He is trained to attach it to anything that gives off a special sound signal underwater. A torpedo is the recovery target today. After the grapple is attached and is checked by the whale, he leaves to return the mouthpiece to his trainer. example, has an attachment that will inflate automatically and float the torpedo to the surface. Whales can also be trained for aggressive military jobs, underwater Doberman pincers. The American tuna fleet uses free-ranging dolphins to lead the catcher boats to schools of tuna. A killer whale that the Navy trained about the same time as this pilot whale escaped his ship to freedom in the open ocean on one of his first free-ranging trials. In the history of whaling, killer whales have never been extensively hunted. Yet there is a commercial industry surrounding these animals. The value of a killer whale, captured alive for exhibition, ranges upwards to $50,000. On the west coast of North America, there are 3 groups licensed to capture killer whales. 2 of these are Canadian. Since 1962, over 67 killer whales have been introduced into captivity. Of these, only 27 are still alive and currently on display at 17 different marine institutions.
I'd like to introduce you to Haida. He's going to start his show off with a great big jump, so there he is. Beautiful jump, Haida. Very nice. Oh, Haida, that's not very nice. Okay, Haida's going to try the backstroke for us. Haida tries very hard in this behavior. He certainly doesn't get very far, though. Okay, we're going to get a big friendly flipper shake from Haida. Those are called pectoral flippers, and in them they have the same bone structure we have in our own hands and arms. Okay, Haida's going to show off that beautiful black and white tail of his. There he is. He's coming up tail first. Very nice, Haida. You notice the fluke on the end of Haida's tail? It reaches a span of 4 feet wide right now. When Haida's full grown, it will reach a span of 8 feet wide. Okay, there he is. Now watch out across from me over there and all around the trainer. He's going to do a great big jump. Look out! Wow, that was a good jump, Haida. Boy, oh boy.
Although the killer whale has never been much hunted for its blubber, it seems that the number of killer whales is decreasing. Descriptions from local fishermen of killer whales traveling through the waters of Georgia Strait and Puget Sound in the state of Washington, the area where the killer whale population seems its densest, suggest that the number of animals now present in the area is a fraction of those present several decades ago. It is probable that indirect causes are responsible for any reduction in the killer whale population. In the eastern Pacific, the appearance of the whales off the coast of British Columbia coincides with the summer migration runs of salmon through that area. Heavy commercial fishing and the cropping of seals, the killing of sea lions, have reduced the food available. Scientific studies of the killer whale have only recently begun. From population studies conducted over the last 3 years by Dr. Ian McCaskey and Dr. Michael Bigg of the Fisheries Research Board of Canada, the estimates show that at the peak of the summer months, there may be 300 killer whales in British Columbia waters. The United States has recently taken the lead in banning the killing or capture of marine mammals within its territorial waters, as well also prohibiting the importation of marine mammal products into the country. The U.S. has proposed to the International Whaling Commission that a global 10-year moratorium be held on the killing of whales to give the stocks time to recover and for population studies to be made. The resolution has so far failed. In Canada, the last whaling stations have now been closed, and with the exception of live capture, killer whales have been put on our protected list. But internationally, led by Japan and the USSR, the slaughter of whales goes on, bringing the remaining species of whales closer to extinction. Perhaps now it is time to protect likely the most intelligent species sharing the planet with us. The last of the great whales.
It is said that the spirit of all hunters of the sea, those who wield the spear, become killer whales after death. Therefore, nobody, it is said, in his senses would think of killing one of these animals.